Hello everyone, very warm welcome to this afternoon's webinar. My name's Jackie and today we're going to be looking at stock transactions. I'm joined today by Michael and Abby. They're both on hand in the background for any questions that you may have. So please do keep them busy throughout the session. Don't feel that you need to wait till the end of today's session if you've got any questions. First of all, some housekeeping. So you may notice that you're placed on mute. That just means that you won't be able to speak to us directly. If you do have any questions, you will need to use the questions panel, which you can access using the icon that looks like a speech bubble with the question mark in the middle, and that will launch the questions panel. So if you type your questions across to us, Michael and Abby will try and respond to you via text. Otherwise, I will try and pick out some of the key ones today if I can to demonstrate for you. There is a handout for today, so today we are going to go back and forwards between the handout and a demonstration. If you want a copy of the handout, then you can use the icon that looks like the document with the folded corner, and that will allow you to take a copy of today's handout. So first of all, we're just going to very briefly talk about what the stock transactions are. We're going to look at adjustments, goods in and goods out, returns, damages, movement in and out, and then write off. So it might be that you've not come across a lot of these before, and that's exactly the idea of today's session, is to show you what is possible with the software. Now, some of the features you might not have seen because you're maybe on essentials, so we will try and highlight where possible where it is a feature that is only available in certain levels of the software. Now, I do have a quick poll for you before we begin. So we'd just like to know how many of you are actually currently using the products and services module. So I'm just going to launch that poll. It will be with you in just a few moments there. And you should start to see that on your screen. So just want to know if you're using it, or are you joining today with a view to using it? So you might just be looking at what else the program can do, or it might just be for your own personal learning as well. So I do like to wait till we've got around 70% of the votes through, just so we get a good picture of everyone's usage. Okay, they're starting to come through there now, which is great. And we're nearly at the magic 70, so just a couple more. Fabulous. Okay, that's fine. I'll close the poll there. No problem if you didn't get through there. Don't worry about it. I will just share the results there. So a lot of you at the moment aren't using the module, so you're not using that feature. 65% of you and 35% of you are. So today might give you a great insight into what you could potentially do with the software that might make your life a little bit easier down the line. Okay, so just pop back onto the slides. And we're just going to talk about stock transactions first of all. So stock transactions are a little bit like your transactions on your transaction listing on your customers and suppliers, but rather than recording invoices and credits, it's recording the movements in, movements out of your stock. So you'll need to be using products. You need to have set them up as a product record. So when you were on session on Monday, if you joined us for that, we showed you the difference between products and service items as well. So it has to be a product item for it to record one of these transaction types on the record. And we do in fact have quite a few different transaction types. Again, you might not have seen some of these before, and we're going to clarify all of them for you today and show you how you can achieve each. So you may have been using it and seen an adjustment in or an adjustment out. So these are our most simplest movements. Then we have our goods in, goods out and goods returned. Now these are transactions that result if you're using invoices and credits, or if you're using the purchase order and sales order module for goods in and goods out. We then have the movement in and movement out. Now these particular items are part of our bill of materials module. Okay, so we're getting quite complex here with this particular type of transaction, and we do have a session on bill of materials next week. So if you do want to know more about what bill of materials is and what that does, then we will give you a high level view today, but we're going to do a full session on bill of materials next week. And then finally, we've got the damages in, damages out, and write-off as well. So you will notice there that a few of these are only available on professional only. Now, apologies, I have just noticed movement in and movement out. They are also part of professional too. So just bear that in mind. So you do need to be using professional for some of these to actually appear in your software, but adjustment in and adjustment out and also the goods out is available for everyone. Okay, so we're going to go through each of these transaction types, and at each stage I'm actually going to do a little demo for you. So we are going to go back and forwards a little bit today to demonstrate each of these features and how they work. If you've got any questions along the way, please do just pop them in as soon as they come to you, because I will try and address them along the way if they're relevant to the area that we're in at that point in time. So please don't feel you need to wait to the end of the session there. Okay, so the first one is the simplest one. It's your adjustments in and your adjustments out. Now this option is found at the top of your products and services module. And what this will simply do is it will allow you to specify how many items you want to adjust in or out. It is also the type of transaction that is recorded when you do a stock take. Now, we are doing a session on stock take tomorrow, so we will cover this slide again tomorrow. I have just pinched this one for tomorrow's session, but adjustments in is a really simple adjustment to your stock levels. Now, this is probably useful if you want to start looking at monitoring your stock levels, but you're not using anything like invoicing or ordering. So it starts to give you the very basics of stock control. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to go into our data set straight away. I'm going to just find my data there. And we're just going to go into products and services first, because I just want to show you a couple of things. So the first thing I'm going to do is just find my product number 1. And just bring this one across, just opened on the other window. So just want to clarify what I mean by a stock item. So I mentioned it has to be an item type of stock item. Okay, if it was any of the others, non-stock or service items, these particular records do not record history or activity on them. Only stock items do. So if you do try to record any stock transactions on any other type, you will be greeted with a message there. Okay, so when we're talking about stock transactions, there is one place that we can see stock transactions, and that is within the activity window of the product record. So it's not like a normal audit trail transaction where we have the transactions listing of all of them. They're all held within the individual records for each product. So just wanted to clarify that for you first before I show you the first basic feature. So I've got some products set up to try and demonstrate a few different things for you today and keep them all separate from one another. So we're starting with the adjustment in feature. So adjustment in is at the top. Now yours might look slightly different. It might have an icon that looks more like the stock valuation one there. It's just because of the way my screen is set up, mine have been condensed down. So don't be alarmed, as long as it says adjustment in, you're going to the right place. Okay, so I've clicked on adjustment in. Now we're getting a window very similar to a batch invoice window here. So very, very similar. It's selected the product code that I've highlighted in the list at the moment. And what I can do is I can allocate this a reference if I wish to do so. And if I'm using projects, so if I do want to bring stock in for a particular project, then I do have the project reference and cost codes options here too. Now we're going to stay clear of projects today because I don't want to overcomplicate something, but just be aware that some of the features we're going to show today do also have the project reference on there. Now, we're now going to bring some into stock. So I'm just going to bring a few items into stock, but I want to highlight something that's really important. And it's really important, even if you're not going to use it initially, you might down the line decide to use something called stock valuation reports. So it is really key, if you ever want to do this, or you think you might want to do this down the line, is to make sure that the cost price is entered. Now this just means it can start to look at retrospective product value values for you when you do stock reports, but it also means it's going to pull this through onto the record for you automatically, so it's going to make your future transactions a bit more easy to complete. So it's already automatically popped in a cost price. That's because that's what I've got in the record. But if it was slightly different, for example, the cost price might have gone up, then I can amend this box, okay, and that will update my record. Now, things like the sales price, on order and free, they're not available. They're just read only at the moment, so I can't actually type into those. Now, I can add multiple lines. If I did want to do another adjustment in for another record, then I do have the opportunity to add multiple into here at one time. But for the purposes of this one, I'm just going to do a simple adjustment in. So I'm just going to click Save and Close. So what you'll notice there is we posted the adjustment in on product 1. My quantity in stock has now increased to 10. My last cost price on the record is now updated to £16, and we have 10 free stock. So let's have a look at that on the actual record itself. So I'm going to go into here. As you can see here, I've got my amount in stock, the 10 that we've just adjusted in, and also my last cost price has updated over here. So that just means next time I go to do another adjustment in, this is what we'll pull through. But again, we can overwrite that. If I pop into the activity then, what we'll then see is we've got the adjustment in, an AI transaction. So a nice easy adjustment in. It's now showing an amount in stock, which I can then use through maybe adjustments out, or if I am using invoices in ordering, then I can use this for those. Doing an adjustment out is pretty much the same. The feature's right next to adjustment in. Window again looks very similar to a batch invoice window. And this time I'm just going to do an adjustment out of say 5. And again, this time the in-stock, sales price, on order and allocated are all read only. So the only one I can adjust there is the quantity. So if I save, as you can see there now in the in-stock column, we've now reduced to 5 in stock. And if we look at the record itself, it starts to build up that picture of those stock movements. So those are our most simplest form. I am going to very briefly touch on stock take. So if you do a stock take, you've got the option here. I'm going to go through a full webinar on the stock take feature tomorrow, but the stock take uses the same transaction types. It will use an adjustment in or an adjustment out. So if you do want to follow stock take, then join us tomorrow, same time, and we'll go through that feature for you. So those are our simple ones. The next thing we're going to look at is goods in and goods out. And these bring into it another couple of modules. So we're sort of growing what we're using in the software. So to demonstrate a goods in transaction, I'm just going to go back to the slides for a second. So goods in transactions are due to purchase order processing. So you have to be using the purchase order module in order to use a goods in transaction. So this brings goods in relating to a supplier, and it will also have an order applied to it and also a goods received note attached to it as well. So if you need all of that, then you're going to be needing the professional feature for a goods in transaction. Now, if you're using invoicing for sending out to your customers, you can still just do an adjustment in if you need to do so. But the goods in will give you all of those additional features. So I'm going to show you very briefly now how to do a purchase order for bringing in a goods in transaction. So again, I'm just going to pop back to the demonstration data there. I'm going to pop into purchase orders. Now again, if purchase orders is a feature that you're wanting to get the most out of, or you're looking to start using, we are going to be doing a session early in June on purchase orders. In fact, it's mid-June, I do apologise. It's the 19th of June. We'll be going through purchase orders in a lot more detail than we can on today's session. So what I'm just going to very quickly do is create an order for 2 of my products. Just bring our order across here. So I'm going to do products 2 and 3. And there's nothing in stock for either of these at the moment. As you can see in the window here, we've got free stock. We've got nothing in stock there. And I'm actually going to order 10 of each of these. So on this order, I can add multiple items onto a single order. And I just need to apply this to my supplier as well. And we're going to save this order. Now, purchase orders goes through quite a few stages. So what we do need to do is pop it on order to declare that the order has been placed. And what that will do is add it to our purchase order list. But at the moment, because we're on order, there's no transaction on those product records. So if I pop into number 2, product 2 there, and into activity, we've got nothing yet. So what we do need to do to make sure that it comes through onto the record is mark that order as delivered. So this would only be once you've actually physically received the stock from your supplier. You can highlight your order, and one way of doing this is to receive deliveries. And that's when we get this little message here that I've got in your handout there. And at this point, it's saying, do you want to update stock? So if we've received the goods in, then we need to record those goods into our activity. So I'm going to say yes. Our order status should change to delivered. Just gone on the other window there. I'm going to print that later. So it's gone to complete. And what that means is I now, on my product records, have a goods in transaction. Now, the great thing with this is, yes, it's a goods in, so it means it's quite clear that it's been from a purchase order, but it's also got the purchase order number and the reference. And if I use this little smart link here, this tiny little arrow, it links back to the original order as well. So it ties it all together very nicely. So that's a goods in transaction, only available through purchase order processing. And that's on professional. Now, very similar to this, we have a goods out transaction. Now, this goods out transaction is actually available on the invoices and credits module. So if you're using this feature here, or sales orders, it's exactly the same transaction. So goods out don't require you to be on professional as long as you're using invoicing. So because invoicing is a bit more applicable to everyone, I'm going to demonstrate the goods out using an invoice. So I'm just going to create an invoice now for customer number 1 for the same 2 products, just so we can start to build up that activity. Just new invoice there. And again, if you're new to invoicing, we've got a session on invoicing at the beginning of June. That one will be on the 8th of June. So we are trying to cover things that we've covered in webinars where we can expand on that and give you a little bit more information. Okay, so I'm selecting my products. You can see it's telling me how many are free, so I can actually place them on this order here. And I'm going to just say 5 for each of these. Now again, with invoices, we can save the invoice, but it won't do anything until we update that invoice, and it needs to be marked as posted. Okay, so we've added the invoice and we added the order. So only once we do the next step of completing the item that it will impact our product record. So in invoices, what we need to do is update ledgers. And it will just ask me if I want to print. So I'm just going to say no to that. I think it's just going to open up there. And what it has done there is it's just updated my product record accordingly. So I'm going to show you in product number 2. into there, and you can see a goods out transaction. Now again, something I didn't mention there, when you were bringing the goods in on a purchase order, again, it's really important that when you're bringing it in on an order, you put on the correct cost price. So it's always important, if it asks you for a cost price, to make sure that that is the correct cost price so it can update the record accordingly. So that's taken us to goods in and also covered us for goods out. So I've shown you a really simple way of bringing goods in and out, and I've shown you a slightly more complicated way, but this ties into some of the other modules that you can get more out of your software from. Now, there may be occasions where you actually get a return from a customer, okay? So they might say, actually, I've changed my mind, I no longer want this item. And what you need to do is then put that item back into stock and record that in your software so that we've got full traceability of what's happened there. Now, to do this, the best way to do this is, again, to do a credit note through your invoices and credits module. So I'm just going to pop back into invoices and credits. And we have a few different ways of doing this. I can credit the whole invoice. So if I know that it's a full invoice I wish to credit, then I can highlight the invoice and go to credit invoice. Or I do have the option to do a new credit and enter it basically like an invoice would. Now I am just going to do the credit whole invoice because conscious of time and we want to make sure that we get through everything today for you. So I'm just going to use the credit invoice option. And what that does is it picks up the whole invoice that was originally sent out. Now I can amend this if I wish to do so. So I'm just going to actually take out this row here and just focus on product 2. Now to do this, I can either use F8 or I can use the options at the top just to remove the row there. And it might not be that they're sending everything back. I mean, it might just be sending part of that order back. So again, I can amend the amount that they're sending back and issue a credit note. At the moment, I'm ignoring pricing, but obviously if there was a price on there, that would have pulled through from the original invoice there. So I'm just going to save. And that's popped on an invoice for me. And once again, for this to impact my ledgers and my stock records, I need to update the ledgers. So I'm just going to update that now. And okay. Once it's updated, you can see it's marked as posted. If we pop into products and records and find product 2, pop into the activity, you can see now I have a goods returned item 2. Okay, so we're starting to build up these different transaction types, and these have been using the invoices and orders feature. So just a reminder, if there's any questions, please do send them over. Michael's still on hand there if you've got any questions there. We're going to move on to some of the lesser used transactions now. Your most key ones you're going to have are your adjustments in and adjustments out because they are accessible by everyone. If you're using invoicing and ordering, you're probably going to use these ones more than adjustments in and adjustments out. So it depends how you use the software as to what you'll see more of. And you can do a combination. So you can certainly use adjustments in and out as well as ordering. Okay. So what we're going to look at next, bit of a niche topic, is bill of materials very briefly. Like I say, next week we will be covering bill of materials, what it means, how it works in more detail. But I just wanted to show you a couple of transactions that can result from doing a bill of materials. Okay, so bill of materials, just to give you the gist, is where you make a product from other products in your list. So just to give you some examples, I have had examples of hampers. So it might be that you've got lots of individual items, but you sell a hamper, which means that all of these items need to be grouped together to make one general component. Now, bill of materials can have many assembly levels. Okay, so it might be that you even start at the roots of creating the wine itself and making the bottle for your wine hamper. That's the example I normally use in my training courses. Now I'm going to keep it very simple today. We're just going to do a single transfer through one level. So we have an end product, as you can see here, and I'm just going to go into my end product so you can see how this bill of materials is made. So my bill of materials consists of one item of my subcomponent. I haven't gone all out today with examples there. So all I need to do to create my end product is transfer in one of my subcomponent. Now, if you look at my subcomponent there, I do in fact have one in stock, which is great. Okay, so it means that I can make one of my end product. So to do this, what we need to do is a stock transfer. So I need to tell my software to move this item here into this item over here. So I've got the stock transfer option at the top. This will only appear if you're on professional and using bill of materials. And as you can see here, I've got my end product already entered because I had that highlighted first of all. So I'm just going to specify that I just want to do one and save. So very easy again. I'm just telling it I want one, and it will save. Now what that's done, if we have a look again at subcomponent one that originally had one item in stock, is that's now 0, and then my end product now has the item in stock. So we've done that transfer nice and easy. Now it can get more complicated, which is why we've got a dedicated session to it. I'm trying to keep this low level for today. But let's have a look at those transactions that have occurred as a result of that. So if I pop into my end product and into the activity, what I have is an MI transaction, and that's a movement in. Okay, so you might never have seen one before, and that might just be because you don't use bill of materials, but if you do start to, you're going to see a few of these appear on your end component. Then if we have a look at our subcomponent and in the activity, in here we have an MO, a movement out. So an MO and an MI are movement in and out, and that's just moving it from one to another for that bill of materials. Now it can get more complicated with multiple levels. If you don't have enough in stock of a level and you've got more subcomponents below, it can transfer from further down the chain. Okay, but like I say, Wednesday next week is the day to arrive if you want to find out a bit more about that one. So I've got 3 left to do. And again, we're going really rare here. I'll be honest, I've probably supported customers on these transactions a handful of times. Okay, so they're very rare, but they are still there. And we would like you to know the options that you have. And this is for damages in, damages out, and for write-off as well. Now I'm just going to dot back to my slides for 1 second, just so I can go through this. So I've given examples of all of them in your handout today, so you can see the movement out and the movement in there. And next we're going to look at the stock returns feature. Okay, so we did do a goods returned earlier, which was through a credit note, but it might be that you're not going down that route, you're not giving a credit note, because maybe some of your customers have maybe sent something back because they're faulty, and they maybe just want it repaired or replaced. Okay, so this is slightly different because we're not giving them a credit note or anything like that. We're just recording that something has been returned and we're going to fix it or do something about that. Now again, these are only available in professional, and I'm going to show you how they impact the record because these are slightly different. So again, back into our software. So this feature is found in the products and services window. And we're just going to highlight product 4 because I've got that one set up for this example here. And I'm just then going to click on returns. Okay, so on returns here, again, very similar to a batch window. However, we now have a drop-down box for the type of transaction we are going to process. So these are slightly different because they don't actually record any actual movement on the record itself. They do a stamp on the record to say there has been a damages in, but it doesn't increase or decrease your stock that's actually in stock at all. So it is slightly different. So a damages in would be a damaged item that you've received back from your customer. So you're marking it as marked back into stock, damages in, but it won't put anything back into stock. So I'm just going to do this one first. I'm going to say here they've sent back 4 items as a damage in. And I'm just going to pop in a little note there of fix required, and that's just for my notes there. So quite easy, but I just need to make sure that I've got the right one selected from the drop down here. So fix required and save. So if we look at product 4, this is where we record it for. We don't have anything in stock. We didn't to begin with. If I go into the record and into the activity, you can see it still has put a stamp on the activity. So it's recorded the damage in, but it hasn't put any in stock at all for me. It hasn't impacted my sales at all because it's assuming and it's making that assumption that we're just going to make the fix and send that back out. Similar with a damages out transaction. So a damages out transaction is done in exactly the same way on the returns option, but we just need to make sure that we've got damages out selected. And again, it might be that we are sending something back to our supplier because we need a repair, or it might just be we're recording on that same record that the repair is being done. And again, I'm just going to pop on a different value there just so we can make it stand out from the other one. And repair agreed. So we're sending this back to our supplier because they've agreed a repair, and we can save. So if we have a look at our product and the activity there, you can see we've got the damages in and damages out. So we are still making ourselves aware for down the line, you know, that repairs have been done on items, but it's not impacting what's available. So that's our damages in and our damages out. The final one I'm going to do is our write-off. Now I'm going to pick product 2 again for this one. And this is where we are absolutely writing off that item. So we are going to reduce the amount in stock. That item is no longer usable. It's not something that we can repair, and we need to take the item out of stock. So for this one, for a write-off, again, we do go through returns. And rather than selected damages in, we go down to the write-off option. And we can, again, just pop something on. Beyond repair, and I'm just going to say 1 in this case. Now if we have a look at product 2, I've picked on this one a lot today, so we've got a little bit of activity building up on here. As you can see there, when we've put that write-off through, it has put a quantity out and it did reduce the stock. So we did in fact have 7 originally. It has reduced the stock on the record. Now this write-off has corrected the stock item, but what it hasn't done is recorded that elsewhere in our nominal ledger. So that's where you do need to just think about what you will need to do postings wise just to correct on your nominal ledger. And that's the write-off feature. Like I say, very, very rare, because I don't think people are aware that that feature is there, to be honest. So it might be something that you've had to do adjustments for yourself in the past, but that option is there to write off values as well. Okay, so that's taken us through all of the transaction types. I'm going to go on to a little summary for you. We've covered quite a few different things there for you. Your handout does have a little bit more explanation around the damages in and damages out there. So there's 10 potential stock transaction types if you're using stock movements. However, it may be that you only use a few of these. I don't expect all 10 to be in use at one time unless you're using the program to the max. The adjustments in and out, the most simple form. They don't link to any other modules, so you can just do simple in and simple out. Goods in and goods out, bring in the other modules. So they do include your invoice module, your order module for sales and purchases. Movements in and movements out are for bill of materials only. That's the only time you will see them, and that's only once you've done a stock transfer too. And then you do have that goods return feature. Okay, so you've got the damages in and damages out, and then finally the write-off. It can be used if it needs to be completely written off and it's beyond repair. Everything we've shown you today alone will not have an impact on the nominal ledger. Okay, just the transactions. If you're using invoicing or sales orders and purchase orders, when you update them, those will have the impact on the nominal ledger. But the transactions themselves have very little impact on the nominal ledger, if anything. Now, we do have a session on stock valuation and also stock journals next week. So quite often what you will do is, if you're using the stock feature, is you'll do an opening and closing stock journal at the beginning and end of the month. Michael is going to go through that next week. So if you are thinking, I want to use this feature, but I also want my nominal ledger to be up to date, then the opening and closing stock journals are the way to do that. And we'll go into that in a bit more detail for you next week. So the stock module is a big feature and there's lots of bits and bobs to it. So we are doing quite a few sessions over the next few weeks on those. So tomorrow we're going to look at stock take, which isn't a huge feature. It does make it nice and simple. It uses those adjustments in and out. So we're going to go through stock take tomorrow. We'll do both a manual and also an import of a stock take too. So that might be of interest to you. And then on Friday, Michael's going to go through valuation reports. So if you want to use your software to understand the value of your stock, then Michael will be covering the reports that can do that for you. In addition, next week, we've got bill of materials on Wednesday, and we also have the stock journals next week as well. We've touched on invoices, orders today. They are being covered in June. So if you do want to find out a little bit more about those, then please do check out our help centre, where we've got lots of different topics on there, but we are covering those in June for you. Okay, so there's been a few questions there. I think Michael's on top of them, but we'll just talk briefly, just while you're getting any final questions across to us around being a Sage member. And this is just about getting more than just your software from us. So what we have done is we've put together a lot of information and some member benefits together in one place for you so that you can access these. And these include member masterclasses. We've got Sage Learning on our Sage University platform, and also community forums, so where you can submit questions and answers to your peers. We also have the ability for you to submit your ideas for future versions of the software as well. And you can also post questions to some of the team as well. So sometimes we do have members of the team logging on there too. In particular, the member masterclasses, these are where we have a whole heap of experts who've come together. They've created us blogs and videos, and we're looking through different topics. So season 1 was all around finding and keeping great people. Season 2 was about productivity, and season 3, which is our current season, is all about building business resilience, which is a really key topic at this point in time at the moment. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's session. Like I say, we will be back tomorrow with a slightly less complicated session. It will be stock take, which is, like I say, quite a straightforward task, but until you've done it, you don't know. Please do send your questions across. We'll hang on for a few more moments. But if you are leaving us in the meantime, thank you very much for joining us, and we really do hope to see you on some of our future sessions. We've got absolutely loads going on over the next 2 months. Myself, Michael and Abby have been very busy in the background trying to make sure we're covering as much as possible for you. We do have a site that has all of our sessions on, and I'm just going to bring it across for you so you can see this. At the very bottom of the listing here, so you can see all the future topics, you do also have the option to submit an idea. So if we have missed something and you would like to see us cover it, please do submit your idea. Now the list is long here, I do apologise, but once you're at the bottom, you can suggest a new topic. So please do let us know if there's anything that we've missed that you'd love to see, and we will try and add that in if possible. Okay, I'm going to pop us on mute for a couple of moments there just to see if there's any final questions coming through. But if you are leaving us in the meantime, thank you very much, and we will see you again soon. Okay, just a quick question there, and I think Michael has answered partly, and I just wanted to add to it. So the question was, when using purchase orders, the date and the activity is not the date of the purchase order, but the date of the completion. And that's really because when you mark it as complete, that's when you're recording the goods actually being received. So the goods coming in is at the point of you marking it as complete. So that's why the activity would show that date, because the order could have been a month ago, but the date that it was delivered is 30 days apart. So that'll be why. And unfortunately, like Michael said, there isn't an override for that other than what you're doing at the moment there. Okay, thank you very much everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure again, and we hope to see you, if not tomorrow, in the very near future on another session really soon. Take care everyone, and have a lovely afternoon.